Joining us today are two guest analysts, Marcus, a militaries historian focused on the evolution of combat, and Elena, a conflict sociologist and human rights advocate. Welcome, both of you. Thanks for having me. The dawn of the nuclear age and the evolution of global interdependence fundamentally broke that calculus, rendering modern total war an existential threat to human women. The Cataclysm of Industrialized Total War 1945, the detonation of atomic weapons over Hiroshima and Nagasaki fundamentally altered the philosophy of conflict. War could no longer be won in any traditional sense, as an economic destroyer, rather than a creator.
War isn't just about security, it's about power, resources, and systemic interests. Redirecting half of the global military expenditure could solve humanitarian.
That money, if invested in the vulnerable, would generate compounding economic health.
So would governments agree to pay the poor instead of fighting? History tells us no, unless forced by revolutionary social pressure, because war protects elite.
A necessary conversation. Thank you both for breaking that down. To our listeners, what do you think? Which brings us to a radical, provocative thought experiment sent in by a listener. What if soldiers from both opposing parties simply decided to quit all at once?
It's a fascinating, utopian concept. In theory, war requires compliance.
From a historical standpoint, though, the millionaire salary demand gets filtered through real politics. What if governments were legally or break this Trent Warbajod, and those crushed by economic pressure, the exact same amount of money they spend on war? Would they agree?
Historians used to pretend that trauma didn't exist, or that it was a moral failing. But the truth is, the human psyche has a strict breaking point.
Whether you were facing machine gun fire in the trenches of the Somme or navigating modern asymmetric urban warfare with hidden explosives, the nervous system reacts the same way, and the modern era has shifted the nature of that trauma. In the past, a soldier fought an enemy they could see, often in defined battle lines. Today, modern soldiers face chronic hypervigilance. Drone surveillance, improvised explosive devices, and guerrilla tactics mean danger is everywhere and nowhere, all at once. When they return home, the civilian world feels dangerously unpredictable. Beyond PTSD, you have moral injury, the profound psychological pain of witnessing or participating in things that violate your core moral code. We cheer for the strong man with the weapon, but we rarely look at what happens when that weapon is put down and the adrenaline fades. The radical thought experiment. What if soldiers walked away? Which brings us to a radical, provocative thought experiment sent in by a listener. What if soldiers from both opposing parties simply decided to quit all at once? Or, alternatively, what if they unionized and demanded millionaire-level salaries, forcing governments to realize that if they want to play war, they have to pay an impossible price for human lives? It's a fascinating utopian concept. In theory, war requires compliance. If the instruments of violence, the soldiers, simply drop their weapons and refuse to march, states cannot wage war. Armies run on the consent of the governed and the enlisted. Throughout history, mutinies have occasionally brought wars to a halt, like the French army mutinies in 1917 or the Russian soldiers walking away from World War I in 1917. From a historical standpoint, though, the millionaire salary demand gets filtered through realpolitik. If soldiers suddenly demanded astronomical wealth, governments would face a massive economic wall. However, if soldier recruitment plummeted because of sky-high costs or mass conscientious objection, it would fundamentally break the traditional war machine. It forces a terrifying question for leaders. Is your geopolitical ambition worth bankrupting the treasury before the first shot is even fired? Part 3. The ultimate trade-off: redirecting the war chest. That leads directly to the final, haunting question our listener posed. What if governments were legally or morally forced to pay the civilian population, the poor, the elderly, the vulnerable, the sick children, and those crushed by economic pressure, the exact same amount of money they spend on war? Should they agree? They should agree, but the tragedy is that war isn't just about security. It's about power, resources, and systemic interests. Think about the global military expenditure trillions of dollars every single year. If you redirected even half of that into public health care, child welfare, poverty eradication, and stabilizing economies, we could solve humanitarian crises overnight. Exactly. War is an absolute wealth destroyer. It takes productive human capital and physical resources and turns them into ash. When a government spends billions on munitions, that money is vaporized. If that exact capital were invested in the vulnerable sick children, the elderly, struggling workers, it would generate compounding economic health. So would governments agree to pay the poor instead of fighting? History tells us no, unless forced by revolutionary social pressure, because war protects elite interests, while social safety nets require a redistribution of power. But the listener's point cuts right to the bone. When you look at a mother struggling to feed her sick child versus a multi-billion-dollar defense contract, you realize that war is a choice of priorities. And right now, humanity's priorities are tragically upside down. A heavy and necessary conversation. Thank you for breaking that down. To our listeners, what do you think? Would a massive financial price tag or a collective refusal by soldiers be the ultimate cure for war? Throughout history, war was frequently viewed as a legitimate instrument of statecraft, economic expansion, or territorial acquisition. However, the dawn of the nuclear age and the evolution of global interdependence fundamentally broke that calculus, rendering modern total war an existential threat to human civilization. Here is a brief historical background on why the current era must treat warfare strictly as an unthinkable last resort. 1. The Cataclysm of Industrialized Total War, 1914 to 1945. For millennia, war was largely limited by logistics, transport, and the range of weaponry. The First and Second World Wars shattered this paradigm by merging industrial capacity with military might. Mechanized destruction. Factories churned out tanks, artillery, and aircraft at scale, turning battlefields into automated meat grinders. Total targeting. The distinction between combatants and civilians evaporated. Cities were firebombed, populations blockaded, and atrocities industrialized. The human cost. World War II alone resulted in an estimated 70 to 85 million fatalities. Governments realized that total war no longer decided political disputes cleanly. It simply devastated societies, drained national treasuries, and left victors and vanquished alike in ruins. 2. The nuclear revolution and mutual assured destruction, 1945 to present. The detonation of atomic weapons over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 fundamentally altered the philosophy of conflict. War could no longer be won in any traditional sense. The nuclear threshold. With the proliferation of thermonuclear weapons, superpowers entered an era defined by mutually assured destruction, MAD, the logic of deterrence. Any direct, large-scale military conflict between major nuclear-armed states carries an unavoidable risk of escalation to a nuclear exchange, which would trigger a global nuclear winter, collapsing food systems and destroying human life globally. Consequently, major powers were forced to substitute direct warfare with proxy conflicts, economic competition, and diplomacy. 3. The rise of global interdependence and economic integration. In the post-World War II era, the economic architecture of the world shifted away from isolated, self-sustaining empires. Supply chain fragility. Modern economies rely on hyper-integrated global supply chains. A conflict in one region instantly disrupts semiconductors, energy, finance, and agriculture worldwide. Trade over conquest. War is now universally recognized as an economic destroyer rather than a creator. 4. International law and the shift in norms. The horrors of the mid-20th century spurred an unprecedented global effort to outlaw aggressive war. The UN Charter, 1945, the United Nations was founded with the primary purpose of saving succeeding generations from the scourge of war. Human rights and accountability. The establishment of international humanitarian law codified the protection of civilians, shifting global morality to view aggressive military expansion as a severe international crime. Conclusion. In the 21st century, the margin for error has shrunk to zero. Because modern weaponry possesses absolute destructive capability and modern economies are profoundly interconnected, a major war can no longer be contained or localized. The lessons of history dictate that peace is not merely the absence of fighting, but an absolute operational necessity for human survival leaving armed conflict, justifiable only in the most extreme, unavoidable scenarios of immediate self-defense. Global Peace Broadcasting Network, informing minds, inspiring hope, connecting our world through peace. Good night.